Good morning to viewers around the world, and a very warm welcome to ICE365 Live, bringing gaming's biggest show directly into your homes. My name is Katie Goldfinch, and I will be your eyes and ears of ICE London. Now, of course, nothing can replicate the excitement of being in the thick of the action here at the show, but we're doing the next best thing, bringing you latest updates, analysis from attendees across the show. Now, the path to London, ICE London 2022, has been far from easy. The COVID-19 pandemic causing date delays, meaning the industry has 2 years of catching up to do. This, at least, has meant there's been more time for planning and innovation, meaning there are some exciting new features at the ExCeL London. We'll be broadcasting live until Thursday from ExCeL London. The esports arena is bigger and better than ever, and the pitch ice area, as well as the consumer protection zone, have expanded significantly. Some fun features to mention: we have the Pillar Hall Casino, City Park Clubhouse, as well as more areas to recharge, relax, and engage with social media at the show. Upstairs in the Capital Suites, a renewed Icebox is kicking off the masterclass program, providing a tailored experience for delegates. In short, there's more to experience here than ever before. And what about ICE365 Live? Well, it's a new feature for 2022, and do we have a packed program for you today? Let's take a look at the agenda for today. We're going to hear from the likes of Simon Thomas, Executive Chairman of London's Hippodrome Casino, Charmaine Mabuza of South African lottery operator Ituba, who will be joining me live in the studio, as will Stuart Hunter from Clarion Gaming. We're also checking in with developments in Latin America with LATAM Media Group, and in Asia from our friends at Inside Asian Gaming. We'll look at the US developments with Brendan Bussman of B Global Advisors and Sport Raiders Brant Iden. Other sessions coming up include updates from Germany, H2 Gambling Capital, and e-Gaming Monitor. Remember, you can engage with the show via social media. You can tweet us at ICE365 Global using the hashtag MyICE22. Now we begin today's broadcast with Ukraine. Last year, Ukraine legalized multiple forms of gambling, reawakening an industry that has lain dormant since a ban was imposed in 2009. Ukraine was due to be one of the largest growth regions for iGaming operators in 2022 and beyond. Obviously, in late February, that all changed. Since then, there have been shocking scenes from the country, and for the gambling industry, what was a thriving tech sector has been thrown into turmoil. On ICE365.com, you will find coverage of industry suppliers and operators that have found themselves flung into an unimaginable situation. Ukraine was due to be one of the best represented nationalities here at the show. You can pay your respects and find out where's best to donate in the North and South Halls here at the show. In this situation, the only place we could begin today's broadcast was with Ukraine. And to that end, I am delighted to announce that I am joined in the studio by two very special guests. Hello, both.
Hello.
Hello.
So I am joined by Yevgenia Derbel, Chief Legal Officer of Parimatch, and Vladimir Maliki, Chief Commercial Officer of EvoPlay. Welcome.
How do you do?
Well, very well. Lovely to have you as our first interview on ICE365 Live, a new feature for 2022. How are you finding the show so far?
I think pretty nice show. We didn't expect a lot of people here from the beginning, but right now I understand that what I've seen from meetings, what I've seen from schedule and so on, there are a lot of people coming, and that's very cool.
Yeah, and getting back to live. It's wonderful.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm going to ask some questions, and both of you can answer in whatever order suits you both. I'm just wondering what you've been doing to help your employees during this difficult time.
You can start.
I can start. Well, the first minutes of war was shocking for everyone, of course. No one expected it to be. It's 2022, and it was a nightmare. Our top priority was to have our people in safe places. Because as you know, Parimatch brand was established in Ukraine in 1994, and we have the biggest R&D center in Ukraine with more than 2,000 people. So hundreds and thousands of our colleagues were in Ukraine. And I was in Cyprus with my 4-year-old son when Russia invaded Ukraine, and due to the efforts and support of our management, we set up a 24/7 support line for all of our employees and colleagues in Cyprus. And we had no day offs, no breaks, nothing. You would say what we would do from Cyprus. Coordination, it was really important during those chaotic days. We arranged evacuation and transportation for our employees and colleagues. We were buying tickets and we were arranging accommodation in Ukraine and outside of Ukraine. We have been buying medication for our colleagues, for their families, and for everyone who needed the support. We were setting up the safe routes for the driving of cars to get out of the dangerous places. Many of our employees were in Kiev, Bucha, Irpin, Kharkiv, in really dangerous places, as we understand now. So the top priority was to have them in safe places, and we spent all our efforts, all energy we had to read these. We have more than 100 people in Cyprus, so everyone was really dedicated and was really involved in this.
Wow. Yeah, can't imagine what that must be like. And for yourself, Vladimir, what about at Evo Play?
I think a lot of companies just helping. What I know, a lot of helping their people to transfer to Europe, to some Cyprus points. The first step for us was we have office in Cyprus. We opened new office in Lviv because Lviv was just a part of more safe place. At least at the beginning of the war, it was a bit more safer. We opened a big office there and also helped like all the staff to transfer. Like the main problem was not all the staff wanted to transfer. They were just saying us, okay, we'll still live in Kiev, we'll still live in Kharkiv and so we will just stay here. But for all the employees that are ready to transfer, we transfer them to Cyprus or to Lviv. Some of them are living in Poland and to Germany because they decided to choose these countries. So our goal was just to help them to go there, to find a safe place, to find a living place, to find a working place. So we already opened. We already started open new office in Czech Republic as well, because this will be a part of just expanding of employees and their families. Because I think from the business point of view, this is a good position, and for the living process, we can provide a lot of things for flats, for offices, and so on. For the staff who was in Cyprus already, we rented them flats. We rented a block of buildings. We rented a new office, a bigger one, because we had a very small office. So right now we already rented a bigger one. Also, right now it's public information because we keep it in secret due to some of company policies. We've invested more than $2 million just to support the army and to support everybody inside. I am not speaking about volunteers and so on, because it is on the people mind firstly, because we didn't ask anybody to do this. For me it was shock, but people continue working and they asking because they told me that okay. We need working because this is keeping us more stable, keeping us out of the hole. But after they're working, they continue volunteering. They're going to helping all the army process and so on. So I think our main goal right now, if I can tell that it is stable, at least everybody is understanding what's going on. Because in the first 2 weeks. You understand that there are war, but you just you read about these, you know about these, but you can't understand what's going on, how to move forward. This is like nightmare in the head. I didn't plan anything. So right now we're just continue hiring in Ukraine. It will be continue working as the main position of hiring new people, because we trust that Ukraine will win, and we will expand to new locations in Europe just to have more options for people, because some people are leaving right now because after some period of time they understand that this is the better position for them. So our goal is just to continue helping them, to continue supporting them, and as a business, because people are business. So neither anything, neither people that are working, the employees. This is the main part of your business. So like a business, I think the first and the most important thing, we need to provide them a lot of options in different part of Europe, just in different part of safe places right now, at least for today, to have an option to work. And this is the goal that we are working on.
Thank you, Vladimir. And Yevgenia, have you been surprised by the support that you've received from industry peers? Or have you received any support from your industry peers?
Well, from the first days and weeks, we were focusing on helping our own people and we're using resources of our company. But of course, we were communicated with other companies within our industry and we were helping each other. We set up a huge network of volunteers with cars and without cars who were helping first employees and families, and they started to help other people from other companies as well. So we have been coordinated with other industry leads. And with our partners, we have gathered more than 80 million of hryvnias, which were sent to support the country to buy the protection ammunition, medication, etc. And our players, they were also be able to support and donate, and we gathered more than 10 million hryvnias from our players also to support the country in this.
Thank you. And Vladimir, have Evo Play experienced any help from industry peers?
I think yes, it won't be the full answer because from the day one when the war started, I was in Cyprus because we have some company thinks we have an audit there, and you know the first problem when we decided with CEO to come to Ukraine to take all the people, to take the families, because all the families were in Ukraine once we were in Cyprus. We understood that our bank cards are not working, so just all Ukrainian bank cards were not accepted by any fly company. So like everything was blocked from day one, and we just on our personal issues we can't buy tickets. So I didn't expect. I was just a lot of people were writing what's going on, and like from different point. I have a friends from the industry that are living in US, and I don't know why, I don't know how, but they know about the war started before me, because like I think before even Ukraine knows about this, and they just every of them just helping on each stage in several hours. I think it took me like around 12 hours to come to Romania, just to the border with Ukraine, and this is only because of helping a lot of people. This is like about personal help. Also, the business, I really appreciate the understanding of each partner. We didn't need to explain anybody what's going on. We just asked to, hey guys, we're sorry, but some games will be postponed, for example, because it will be postponed for 1 week or something like this, and you know, like. No question was about why is going on, what's going on, and so on. Everybody is understanding, and I think this kind of understanding, this is the best support whenever it can be. A lot of partners support us with some promotional things, because and it's not about because I don't know somebody is asking and so on. We just explain the situation. Hey guys, some part of like the most part of our stuff in Ukraine, more than 85 like 85% stay in Ukraine, and they are communicating with all the partners, like account managers. They are staying in Ukraine, most of them, and they're speaking with the partners. And of course, everybody is asking what's going on. And I think the main support for each business. I'm speaking with a lot of business owners in Ukraine, and the main thing that they are asking for is two things. First of all, just support the business, continue working with them, and just helping to business to be stable, because we need to support our people. This is like. You know, this is like a circle. You support business, we support people, people support Ukraine, and this is a like close circle. And the second thing is just spread the information, what's going on in real, because aggressor country is trying to evolve, and they're just telling lie. And both of things are supported by the iGaming industry in the full world of this. I think I can't imagine like better support from the industry that we already received.
Yeah, I would just add that we had also many partners from all over the world providing their support, arranging accommodation for our colleagues who exited the country and needed to stay somewhere like Poland, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Romania, and etc. Everyone was calling, sending messages like during the first days and weeks of the war. It was amazing.
Yeah, they're proposing offices, they're proposing accommodations. I received at least, I don't know, 5 propositions from different countries where people just, hey, we have a free space in office, you can work here, we have some free hotels, we have some partners in hotels that can provide like a lot of support. And I think even if you want to use this, the option that you have it, I don't know, for me it's just I'm feeling much better. You know, like you know that behind you a great support, and you can go further easier.
Wow, that's really great to hear that you're getting a good level of support. And what about business for Parimatch? Are you able to release products still?
Yes, we do. Of course, the war influenced the business dramatically, but it didn't kill it. They did with many of our people and citizens. But before the war, our company decided to diversify the markets and the presence in other markets, and we're continuing doing this. Our products are working. They're working in Ukraine as well. It's amazing. We've just been discussing before we start the live show that we couldn't believe the business will still be running. And people, they continue to do their work from the first day of war. It's great. The unity of the nations is amazing. So we're focusing now on running our business, keeping our working places for our employees, having them in safe places. We have also decided to set up a number of offices in Ukraine and outside. One office in Zakarpattia in Uzhgorod on the border with Slovakia. The other office also in Czech Republic, and we're thinking of one more office in Asia.
Okay. And Vladimir, what about at EvoPlay?
Everything due to
Yeah.
business plan. Like we didn't. The employees are the only thing that is connected us to Ukraine. And also, so like probably several partners like Paramount Tech, for example, with this in partnership as well. And but it is not a big percentage of the whole business. So even if the markets can't work, that if we can imagine, it won't influence our business at all because it is very low percentage of the whole influence what we have. So yeah, the only thing that influence business, we need to fully change the processes of cooperation because before we were focused on office work, and even in COVID a lot of people were happy to work in office. There was, I don't know, some period of 3 months when everybody was scaring of COVID and so on, but after 3 months everybody asking, hey, it's unreal to work at home, give us an option to work in offices because it's better, it's more comfortable. So after this, of course, we need to change the process of work, like on daily meetings, on like weekly meetings and other processes, more flexible, and a lot of new people from Europe coming because we started expanding there, and a lot of people from Ukraine that are living in Europe and they are right now are in remote work. You know, like always remote part of work. We need you to turn around and to find another option to work. But the first 2 weeks were very difficult for us because a lot of people are moving. A lot of people they were not ready to. They didn't know where we'll be. And right now, after like around 50 days, everything is understandable. At least everybody is understand where they go and how they are going, how much time they can put inside the job. Because not all the people can put like 100% of time. Somebody's, like when for us it's right now normal when you start a daily meeting and somebody on the background has an alarm and tells, hey guys, sorry, I will come like in 2 hours because alarm started, and it's. It's a pity, but that's what we have right now. This is part of reality. So for business, I think we will continue grow. We will continue grow. We already had the plans of opening new offices in Malta as well, in Latin America. It was before the war, so we are continue doing this because we are expanding to new markets. We're doing right now we are mostly focused on West Europe and some part of Latin America. So I think always when you expand to the market and you already have a good market coverage, you need to have at least one representative office there, just to speak with people on daily basis. Because when you speak with partner face to face, it's much easier, much better cooperation when you're just having calls and Zoom or something like this. So yeah, from the business point of view, I hope everything will be good.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. We've run out of time for our interview now, but thank you so much for coming and joining us and giving us your insights into the state of play for you. I'm really glad to hear that business is still continuing. Please enjoy ICE London 2022.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for the
Thank you for this
opportunity.
option. Bye-bye.
So for viewers at home, you can find more from EvaPlay and Parimatch on ICE365.com. You can also find other companies based in Ukraine on the website. You can find this in the feature stories in Ukraine. Here you'll also find a list of recommended donations supplied by the companies featured in this piece. Coming up next, Asian headlines. Stay tuned. welcome back to ICE365 Live. We're now talking Asian headlines, and I am joined via video link by Ben Blashkey, the managing editor of Inside Asian Gaming, linking in from Australia, and we have Andrew W. Scott, the vice chairman and CEO publisher, Inside Asian Gaming, patching in from Macau. Hello there.
Hi. Hi, Katie. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Ben, is it? I've got...
No, it's Andrew here. And there's Ben.
Andrew. There's Andrew and Ben. Okay, brilliant. How are you both today?
Well, fine in lovely sunny Macau. How is it over there in London?
Oh, in London it's wonderful. It's also sunny outside, actually.
Very good.
So, let's get going. I'll start with a question. So Macau is obviously still the main market in the region, but a combination of challenges have arisen from COVID limiting travel to changing regulations and the arrest of a prominent junket operator. What does this mean for the market going forward?
Well, let's start with COVID. That's probably one of the most pressing things that has been going on in Macau, and there's been a range of different responses by different jurisdictions all across Asia. Asia's experienced a very different COVID situation to Europe and the US and other places like that. And I think probably the most important thing to say is the majority of Asia is now finally opening up, with the glaring exception of what's going on in mainland China at the moment, and therefore that's impinging on Macau. Maybe I'll hand over to Ben to do a bit of an around the grounds of the different jurisdictions in Asia and how they're responding. So Ben, maybe kick it off with Macau.
Sure, Andrew. So, I mean, as you probably know, as everybody knows, Macau is the largest gaming jurisdiction in Asia and, in fact, the world in terms of land-based gaming. But at the moment, Macau is very subdued. The outbreaks in China that we've seen recently have seen border restrictions tighten further than they were before, and they've been quite tight since the outbreak of COVID. So right now, Macau's gaming revenue is down 75 to 80% compared to 2019 levels, and probably not looking like improving anytime soon. The 2022 outlook is not great. But just to, as Andrew said, that most of Asia is opening up. So if we go around to the major jurisdictions in Asia, Singapore is essentially open now to all fully vaccinated travellers. I think you only need a negative COVID test before you depart on your way to Singapore. Philippines, basically the same, pretty much open now. Australia opened about 2 months ago. Very pleasing for me being in Sydney, that can freely come and go now. Malaysia, similar to Singapore. And Korea, a foreigner-only primarily foreigner-only casinos in Korea have really suffered through COVID with no international travellers. But again, they're opening up now too. So the market across Asia is generally starting its road to recovery, except for Macau.
And do you think Macau will ever reach pre-pandemic heights again?
Oh, let me take that one. Look, I think it will. It'll take a while to get there, but I think there's an enormous amount of pent-up demand. We've seen what's happened in Las Vegas and other areas, all across the US, for example. That warms our heart here in Macau, because we see that happening, and we know what the same thing must be happening in mainland China. The demand to get here is very, very high. And whenever there is a little bit of a relaxation in the rules, we do see the numbers shoot up. So there's no shortage of people wanting to come to Macau. It's just the restrictions holding things back. So I think, it can get back to where it was. It's got a long way to ramp up. It's like a whole new market starting again that we've been effectively almost closed for so long. But I think those glory days can come back to Macau. It won't be next week. It won't be next month. But we'll probably get there eventually, I think.
And what is the future of the junket model following the events of December last year?
Well, Ben, do you want to take that one, or will I?
I mean, we could both. There's so much to. This is a very deep topic, Andrew. But I might actually let you go into this. You're in Macau, so you're seeing it on the ground every day.
Well, at the moment, bluntly, the CEOs of the two biggest former junket operators are both in jail in Macau at the moment. I think that's very, very well known. So both of those two big junket operators have essentially completely collapsed. So the junket model almost is no more. I think eventually we may go back to a junket model as it was 20 years ago, with commission on rolling, rather than junket operators that run their own rooms and that run almost pseudo businesses in themselves, casino businesses in themselves. But I think what will happen to that VIP play is it will eventually, at least substantially, migrate to a premium mass. So the 6 concessionaires here in Macau all are actively chasing that GGR that's been lost. And they have to be a little bit careful not to fall foul of mainland China laws in the way that the junkets did. But I think that they can certainly get a fair percentage of that play back, given that those VIP players, they've been coming to Macau for a long time now. So they know where the casinos are. They know where Galaxy is and Venetian is and Parisian is, and they will probably end up finding it for themselves. So best guess at the moment amongst all the pundits in the industry is that maybe we'll see 50 to 60% of that play eventually come back over the next, let's call it 12 to 18 months or so, putting COVID aside for the moment. And in fact, even though we probably won't get all of that GGR back, in some respects, the operators will be happy because their EBITDA margin will be much higher than it was when they had to share that money with the junket. So in fact, even though GGR may drop down 10, 15, 20%, something like that, probably ultimately profitability will in fact go up in the long run.
Brilliant, thank you. And where do you both see room for growth?
Well, let me take that one from a Macau point of view, and then perhaps, Ben, you can look at some of the other places. I think with what's going on in mainland China at the moment, I think that Macau can't rely on mainland China as low-hanging fruit in the way that it always did. So I think that long ignored is Southeast Asia. You've got 1 billion people in Southeast Asia, and it's got a rising middle class, just as mainland China has. So I think as Asia matures and as the Asian century rolls out, there's no reason why there can't be a lot of play come from places like Singapore and Indonesia and Korea and Japan and even Vietnam, Cambodia, places like that. And I think maybe Ben, you might want to talk about Australia. Australia is probably going to experience growth in its domestic market as a result of what's happened internationally. What about down in Australia, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably 2 markets I would focus on. I mean, in terms of Australia, Australia's always had a pretty strong domestic market, and I think that we've seen, like in the United States, I'm sure like in Europe, like in many places, since the borders have reopened, we've seen quite a strong rebound, pent-up demand, people wanting to get out, get back to, enjoying entertainment, being out of the house again. But in terms of, our dealings with, gaming suppliers, the slot machine suppliers, EGM suppliers, ECGs, they look at the Philippines as their real great growth market for the future. And there's a lot happening in the Philippines. We've got Manila, the entertainment city precinct, which currently has 4 integrated resorts in or around the area, and a 5th one opening in the next year or 2 is seen as a great area for growth. Also in a bit further north, up in the Clark area, and down in Cebu as well, there's a couple of integrated resort developments there. So, in terms of growth of the industry in general, Philippines is probably seen as the most attractive at this stage.
And what of Japan's integrated resort project? What do you both think about that?
Well, that's definitely one for me. I was going to Japan every single month from all through 2018, 2019, and actually was there when COVID broke out in January 2020, just on my way to ICE in 2020 in Yokohama. If people want to know what happened in Japan, they should definitely go check out IAG's website. We've done some really big exposés on what's happened there. To be honest, it has really sort of fallen flat as far as the world's integrated resort companies are concerned. MGM is still there in a big way in Osaka, but if you were to go back to the peak when the IR Implementation Act was passed by the Japanese Diet in 2018, there were no less than about 20 major companies around the world very seriously pursuing Japan, and perhaps a dozen or so locations all up, the length and breadth of Japan, interested in opening IRs. Well, fast forward to now, we've got really only one tier 1 company, MGM Resorts, interested in Osaka, and then we've got 2 reasonably small regional locations in Wakayama and Nagasaki, with companies, smaller sort of companies that you wouldn't normally associate with first tier IRs that you might see in Macau and in Las Vegas. And why? Well, a lot of complicated reasons, but in the limited time that we've got, essentially the rules, Japanese government have been very tough on the rules, high tax rate, entries fee, only 3% of the area allowed to be a gaming area, so 97% of the floor area to be for non-gaming, and then a whole bunch of other rules, and also perhaps some difficulty in the international companies and the Japanese companies communicating and talking to each other. So it's actually turned out that almost every company is withdrawn from that process, and even some people think that the two regional ones may not get passed by the central government in Japan, and we may only have one, and they may have to do a whole rethink on that industry in the months and years to come post-COVID.
And we've seen Caesars enter late. Do you feel that more latecomers could potentially disrupt processes?
Well, we just saw Bally's turn up in Fukuoka completely unexpectedly recently, and it turned out that may have been a little bit of a miscommunication between a potential collaborator and Bally's, the Bally's Corporation, which of course has 16 casinos throughout the US and thriving on online iGaming business. But I think it's going to be, the process needs to roll out. Caesars have put a small interest in a small, relatively small operation in Wakayama that may or may not get through. So I think that's a relatively small one, and we're not, overly confident in either of those regional places making it through, or if they do making it through, necessarily being particularly successful is the way we read it. Sorry to the guys that are interested there. So, look, there could be some late players turn up in Japan, but I think what has to happen is the process has to play out. The Japanese government has to say what they want, and maybe they may need to look at what the outcome's been, go back, reassess it, and go back to the drawing board to a certain extent.
Brilliant. Thank you both. And how are you both feeling about ICE London? Do you wish you were here with us?
Ben, you were the one that was closest to going.
Yeah, Kate, I was 50-50 coming over when it came time to book. There was just a bit of uncertainty around COVID, so I'm pretty. I can give you like a 99% guarantee that I'll be there in 2023. I do miss it. London was literally the last trip. ICE London 2020 was the last trip I did before COVID struck. Still have fond memories of that trip, and looking forward to getting back. The timing didn't quite work out with COVID in Australia for this time, but give me 10 months and I'll be there in February 2023 for sure.
Okay, we'll hold you to that. And what about you, Andrew?
Well, we're trapped here in a gilded cage in Macau. Macau is really incredible. It's arguably the safest place in the world, but we've been very, very affected by the government's extremely strict policies here. We've actually had 0 deaths from COVID and only 82 cases in the entire period. But basically, it's impossible to get here. So I haven't left. I've gone from flying somewhere once a week, and my last trip was also ICE London 2020. Ben and I would normally be there along with Jadeson Ho, one of our other guys, and perhaps 1 or 2 others. We normally would have a booth there, and I'd love to get back there. And we're definitely assuming that we will be there in February 2023. What is it we're up to now? So we'd love to get there.
Brilliant. Okay, well, we'll see you both next year. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Ben.
So for more from Inside Gaming, you can visit their site at asgam.com. Up next, we have a feature with H2 Gambling Capital. Stay tuned for that. Hello, welcome back. Now for our feature on H2 Gambling Capital. I'm joined by, I've got Ed Birkin, the senior consultant, and I've got David Henwood, the director with me. Welcome in. How are you both?
Good, thanks, Katie. Here yesterday, so really good to be here.
Yeah, good. And what are you excited to see at ICE London?
Well, it's just so good. 2 years, 2 months, it's so good to be back. And just to see, the volume of people here is fantastic. But we're here, we're professional analysts, so we're just sort of walking around the show, making old contacts. We're in the conference yesterday as well, so that was great.
Okay, cool. And Ed, how's it been for you so far?
Yeah, fantastic. The conference was a great thing to kick it off yesterday. There's a very good attendance, and today it'll be interesting to see how many stands are back, given it's been rearranged for people. But from what we've seen so far, it's a fantastic turnout, which is great to see. Great.
Okay, so first question to you, David. You've highlighted before that the industry effectively has fallen back a decade as the result of the pandemic. Will it return to 2019 levels in the next year or so?
Well, listen, I don't, we're analysts. I think there's some slides that the Clarion guys have very kindly put up, so I don't know whether we're actually going to see them on the screen, but we've got some stats to illustrate this.
Yep,
so, look, we've got to go back to pre the pandemic and what actually happened when COVID hit. It's a significant step change for the percentage of gambling that's gone online. So you can see the spike here in 2020 and 2021. We've actually gone up from sort of 13-14% of all global gambling online up to, right up, almost up in the mid-20s. And the question is, to what extent that's going to keep going. Obviously, we've got a little bit of a correction, as the land-based industry catches up. But we're sort of talking about this could be the decade of digital where it really accelerates. Next slide actually is the European picture, and this is even more significant. You see European percentage of online interactive share, it's almost hitting up into sort of 30-40%. And, whereas percentage interactive globally could reach 30-35%, in Europe it could actually top 50% by 2030.
Wowee. And Ed, there's obviously been a lot of publicity around Las Vegas recovery, but outside the US, have there been changes in player habits? And as David said, is this really the digital decade?
Yeah, so even Las Vegas is an interesting one because although the revenues have recovered, it's all been driven by a higher spend per player. The visitation's still down quite significantly at what it was in pre-COVID levels, and then I know you had I was watching your very informative presentation earlier talking about Macau, and that's just been decimated at the moment. Now there's a couple of reasons for that. There's obviously the visitation's been highly restricted, but then you've also got the junkets which have taken a kind of pushback. Macau's an interesting one. It's used a bit of a barometer in terms of how the destinations are going to be seen, are going to recover going forward. Are they going to start bringing digital yuan and start controlling things more tightly? I think Macau's a bit of a law unto itself in that respect, 'cause it's so tightly controlled by what the Chinese government are going to do. I think if we look away from destinations and look more towards just the local land base and talking about whether it's a decade of digital, the betting shops in the UK are a good example. So they recovered more quickly on the gaming machines than they did on the sports betting. All the land-based operators like the Coral, Ladbrokes, William Hill, they talked about how their digital business really grew significantly from the land-based customers going online when they were closed down. And now they're talking about the recovery in the land-based business and getting back to similar levels of pre-pandemic, but that's ignoring the fact that you've lost a lot of shops. So, is getting back to pre-pandemic levels, is that a success when you've got 20-30% fewer shops than you did in 2019? Surely it should be higher. So I think without a doubt, as David showed on those slides, this is the decade of digital. Now we could argue the last decade's been the decade of digital, the shift to mobile, but it's really accelerated across. And while people will go back, there is definitely a cohort of customers who love the land-based experience, they love using cash, they love the social aspect. A lot of people who are outside of the gambling industry don't understand that gambling can be a very sociable experience. It sometimes has a bad reputation. People enjoy going down to the betting shop, putting on their racket at the weekend, and they enjoy that physical aspect, which is very different to just going on your mobile, which a different cohort just find it easier to do so. So there is more of a shift to online through enforced with the closure of the land-based. And I think that some of that will stick. Definitely stick, and it is moved to digital. But when you have destination places like Las Vegas, I mean, Las Vegas is going to have an appeal forever, quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned. And as you say, people have already started flooding back there, and I'm sure that in other markets, it will follow. But the non-destination, I think there's clearly been a shift, and it's never going to quite fully recover, even if the headline show it does. If you're taking out capacity, it's not really recovered to this full extent.
And you mentioned Macau there. What do you think of Beijing tightening regulations?
Yeah, so I think how Macau, how it's been is going to look very different in the future. With the loss of some of the junkets, the tightening down on that, we personally don't see the VIP recovering as back to what it was, and how much of it is going to actually change to be more Las Vegas style in terms of not fully Las Vegas, but in terms of Macau. Las Vegas was a destination entertainment city that has gambling. Macau is a gambling destination. And how much that's going to change to really welcome more of the mass market customers? Is there going to be more shopping, restaurants? Is it going to be more of a destination that has gambling as its heart rather than a pure VIP gambling area? And I just don't, as the regulations tighten, we think that the gambling will obviously still be its main draw, but that you're going to have other amenities around it, other ways to spend your money rather than it being focused purely on VIPs, with the heavy betting that it's been in the past.
And so as we appear to be on the cusp of a global recession, hurrah, do you think that figures from the financial crash will be revisited?
Well, I mean, this all sort of lends itself towards the push to online. The sort of the pressures on secondary spends. As budgets tighten. Are less people going to travel? Are they going to actually physically go to land-based properties? The temptation is, perhaps to go online where it is more accessible, it's easier. If you're more confined to the home than perhaps you were previously, that's another reason I think why we're sort of predicting, it might be quite a step change into online, because of the tightening of the economy generally. We saw this actually when there was a big Chinese slowdown in 2015, we had a sort of we'd done some analysis. I don't know whether the slide's available, but we did some analysis of how all the different product verticals were resilient to change, and actually, gaming is the one that really suffers. Obviously, the land-based gaming. It suffered in 2015. It suffered in 2008, 2009. 2015, obviously suffering through COVID. But if you look at lottery in particular, lottery has actually proved much more resilient through an economic slowdown. Here you go. So, we're predicting that's the interactive lotteries in particular is a big growth area, perhaps the biggest product growth area, in addition to betting, because of the opening up of the North American market as well. So.
And is the US growth enough to offset declines in other markets, do you think, David?
Wow. It's gonna have a major impact. I mean, it is, everyone talks about sleeping giant, but it is really, a huge market. But it's not the only one. You've got other markets opening up around the world. Potentially Brazil later on for the FIFA World Cup this year. That sports betting market is going to be big. And then, as we move into sort of Africa, longer term India, the Chinese market, the Japanese market, well, they start to open up as well. So. Yeah, I mean, there's potential for growth, in all parts of the world, because it's still, somebody once told me that the industry is still, it's like a sort of 13, 14-year-old teenager. It's still got to fully mature and grow up, and we're definitely thinking this is the decade where that could happen.
But I mean, in terms of the US, it's interesting because obviously everyone's been talking about sports betting, which has really taken off in a number of states as far surpassed where we thought it would be at the moment doing it. But iGaming's still the one which, although actually regulated before sports betting with New Jersey, that's the one that's really got the potential growth going forward. So if we look at our forecasts, we have betting, growing the fastest because we know how many states have regulated and that's going in. But iGaming's the one that you look at and go, well, hang on, that could be the real step change. And you're talking about the recession, said lottery, the lottery's always been viewed as recession-proof, and we've seen that in 2008, 2009. That was the only one that actually did grow. But even within that, so there's certain markets where you have Spain, where the lottery is so big, it's actually more discretionary spend than other markets, so that lottery declined. But generally, you've got lottery that's recession-proof. We've got the shift to online lottery, which again in the US is so far behind other markets. For such a progressive country in general, the iLottery spend in the US is tiny. Hardly any states have any iLottery. That could be a huge growth driver going forward when you get iLottery. So we've got the iGaming, and then sports betting is, as everyone knows, is growing quickly. But even that, it gets a bit more complicated because there's concerns about, is sports betting growing because of the underlying strength in the market, or is it because of such high bonuses? And what's being reported by the regulators in terms of the sports betting market size in the US is very different to what's actually being reported by the operators, because they're giving away so much free money, because it's such a competitive market, because it's so lucrative, And so I think the potential in the US, as Dave said, Latin America, Brazil, is a big one everyone's talking about. Potentially Japan sports betting, Canada with Ontario opening. There's still so much potential. Being in Europe, being in the UK, you think it's a mature market, but globally there's so much potential in so many different areas. It's still a really exciting, sector to be in.
And so iLottery has the biggest growth vertical, which is interesting when the private sector is becoming more involved. Do you think that the private involvement has a factor in the growth? David, if you want to take that.
Yeah, it's a bit of both. I mean, definitely yes. So you're seeing, sort of professional, companies coming in to manage lotteries. Obviously, we've had that for quite a while in the UK here. The change of the contract from Camelot to Allwyn, you'll see a major change there in terms of the lottery industry, over here in UK and London. But yeah, I mean, throughout Europe, that's starting to happen already. But it will also have a knock-on effect with the monopoly structures as well in the lottery sector. So, that will have the extent to which those lotteries that perhaps have been a bit traditional in the way they're run, they will start to see the opportunity there is in online and interactive and really start to play catch-up, if you like. So yeah, I mean, that whole shift to entertainment is a really interesting area. You see a lot of the big global brands now, they're starting to sort of move away from that terminology of gaming and gambling into the entertainment field. You see with companies like Entain, obviously it's in the title, Flutter Entertainment, Allwyn, Kindred. If you look at all their vision statements, it all talks about moving into an entertainment space. So there's a very subtle change, which is going to attract more of a mass market into the sector.
That's really interesting. The charts showing the onshore and offshore growth and declines in the Netherlands, Germany, and Brazil was particularly illuminating. The Netherlands have obviously taken steps to limit the offshore market. Germany and Brazil had large grey markets prior to regulation, yet they are moving in opposite directions when it comes to channelization. Why is that?
Okay, so I'll go first on this, and I know Ed's got a lot of comment on this, but this is a fascinating area in terms of the way the markets are regulated and getting that balance right. We did a major report this time last year into what makes for a sort of optimum market regulation, and you've got some examples here on the slides of where a couple of countries are getting it right, and then there's another that maybe there's a bit of scope for change. So the Netherlands has done a lot since it newly regulated to try and eliminate the offshore. The restrictions are still quite tight in terms of a high tax take, but if you look at some of the other charts we've got, Brazil in particular, where the market's still to regulate, but the fact that the 24 state lotteries are now offering sports betting has meant there's more of a move onshore. And then Germany is the last one. Now this is the different one, where you're seeing the offshore market still staying relatively high. And I know, Ed, you've got some thoughts on this one.
Yeah, so, I mean, Germany, so that was, I was looking at the web traffic, and they put significant restrictions in, and while a lot of operators were kind of doing a wait-and-see approach, or even complying with them, a number of offshore operators weren't, and there wasn't the enforcement stopping them. So we saw the offshore market triple in size pretty much overnight, over the course of a few weeks, just because that was the place that the customers could go and get what they wanted. So, we were at a conference yesterday. There's a very good session talking about channelization and player protection. And what you need to do, I suppose, is two things. You need to encourage the operators to want to get licensed, and that's where Brazil is in a strong position because, I mean, you've got Sporting Bet, Bet365 over there, probably the two biggest operators, and although they haven't got licensed yet, you'd assume that the licensing there will come on shore. So straight away, they're bringing all of those players across to them onto the onshore market. So that's a massive hurdle that's gone. Holland's done something a bit different. So they've decided to have a cooling off period and allow places like Holland Casino and Toto and people who weren't online before in the grey market to kind of almost catch up from the offshore operators. So at the moment, there's a bit of a strange period where you have players who are the likes of Kindred and Betson and Leo Vegas who are kind of maybe deciding, you know, are they going to go on the newly regulated sites, or are they going to wait until the sites that they've been playing on before get regulated? But then you've got Germany, where even with the best will in the world, you have operators who are getting licensed. The players will go on there and say, actually, it doesn't give. They're not allowed to offer me what I want, so I will go on a site that does. I don't care if they're licensed and paying tax. I don't care if I'm player protected. I just want to bet on what I bet or play on the gaming side on what I played before. And then you have companies like Bet365 that stopped offering gaming altogether in Germany because the product they can offer is just not deemed, you know, worthy enough of even having a license there. So they'll just offer the betting. So there's completely different ways it's done. But regulation's been the driver of the industry for a number of years. I mean, when Italy was the first country model and the growth there, you know, paying tax, but then the growth in the market, everyone thought that the regulation was just the golden goose. And then next you had France, who decided to have a punitive turnover-based tax rate on sports and no casino products. So, you know, every market's regulating differently. You know, I think generally we've seen what we call more progressive or welcoming regulation that encourages player protection, encourages, you know, operators to come on shore, but you still have these little nuances in some markets that means the offshore market is just staying stubbornly high and higher than you think you'd really want to see if your primary goal is protecting the player by having them playing with licensed sites.
And David, you have said before that the US market share might close. Is it likely that we will see at least one of the early leaders fall away or get acquired?
Oh, this is what everybody, you know, what is going to happen, you know, because, you know, you've got a couple of brands really pushing out here in the American market and starting to take quite significant market share. You know, it's a big, big market, and there's still, you've got to say there's still room for new innovation to come. You know, there's a lot of money being pumped into some of the marketing that's going on, and you know, a couple of those companies, DraftKings, FanDuel, they're obviously, you know, got sort of legacy marketing from daily fantasy sports, where, you know, the brands are just really well known, but, you know, at the end of the day, product quality will probably out, you know, in terms of, you know, who has the best website, who has the best app, you know, in terms of, you know, the brand that will really survive. And, you know, you're probably still not seeing the innovation that you have in Europe yet in terms of the quality of the products in America, and maybe that's still to come.
Yeah, I think the US customer at the moment, you know, they're happy to be able to bet on anything. So, you know, at the moment they've got the brands that they know before, who's put it out there, want to spend the most marketing, and they like it. But over time, as David said, you're going to get product innovation. They're going to be more sophisticated. They're going to want to demand more. And you've seen that with FanDuel, where they're having same-game parlays, and they've really taken a step. Now, we track on the US sports betting, we track on a monthly basis the operator share in every single state individually and then gross it up. And the chart that we show, that you've got FanDuel and DraftKings up there, and everyone we speak to, most people we speak to, just assumes that that's how it's going to stay. You know, maybe FanDuel's got 22%, you know, sorry, DraftKings 22%, you know, they'll stay between 20 and 25. You know, FanDuel's got 35. But I think people are going to be surprised because one of the big operators there, I think, is going to probably not be the same share they are now, and there's going to be an operator that isn't there that will be. So if you look at the UK, you know, first moved online, you had William Hill, Ladbrokes, you had the land-based guys who had the brand, who were straight away the market leaders, but then you got Bet365, who was the most innovative and had the most breadth and depth in product, who then came in. I mean, they didn't even exist before online. But then everyone thought that was how it was going to stay. And then Sky Bet came along, who really got mobile rights and went for the more casual customer. And they suddenly came up in the rankings at the detriment of some of the more traditional ones. You've got Australia, where you had effectively a duopoly for the commercial ones of sports bet and sporting bet. And sporting bet doesn't even exist over there really anymore. So, just because the early market leaders, we're only a couple of years into US online sports betting, and I think it's very dangerous to assume that the market leaders now, obviously some of them will stay there, but I think there's going to be, if we look in 5 years' time, they could look very different chart than what it does at the moment.
So we're looking at a potential disruption here. So could it be from within, a kind of Bet365 style brand catching up and then taking over, or do you think the disruptor is yet to emerge?
Well, I mean, so David likes to talk about some of the sports side. So, in the UK you had Sky Bet that did phenomenally well. I mean, it's a great success story, part of Sky. And then we thought that Fox Bet, especially because it's really part of the same team, that they could be the ones that has this media sports partnership that really goes. And I mean, quite frankly, it's been a bit disappointing what they've achieved. But there's other big brands out there, like the ESPN, etc. Dave's got a view on some of the sports. Is there going to be a big media brand? You've obviously got Bet365. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. They're the biggest global sports betting company in the world. I'm sure at some point they're waiting for the bonus, over the top bonusing spend to kind of come down. They don't have, they're not a public company. They don't have to. They can take their time, and they've done that in other markets. So I think you've got to always watch out that they could be, at some point, they could be a powerhouse there. But I think, ESPN, for instance, or one of the sports betting companies, they think they could be the dark horse when they decide what to do.
Oh, looking for the dark horse. I'm going to have to stop you there because we've run out of time for our interview. But thank you so much, Ed and David, for coming in and talking to us on ICE365 Live. Enjoy the show. Up next, we will have a question time with a CEO. So stay tuned to find out who the special guest is in the studio. Welcome back to ICE365 Live. Time now for CEO question time. I am joined by two special guests in the studio. I have Renatus Ziles from DVTM and Jörg Crow from LMS Saarland. Hello both. Welcome to the studio.
Hello. Hello.
So, Renatus, I'm going to ask you the first three questions. Do you feel the new regulatory authority has engaged with the industry since it was established?
Yes, GGL is doing a good job for overall. After our BTC panel, it was at the R8 of March with 6 high-level persons. Cooperation will be intensivist. Also the request of the GGL, especially at the association operator level. At the session of DVTM, there will be a roundtable and task forces in the near future, and the GGL says we worked very well with the lawyers, but we preferred that in the future we have the discussion directly with the operator and the other people around this new market.
And are you confident that it will be in a position to start overseeing enforcement action, such as IP blocking of under-licensed sites by the 1st of July?
Yes, in our view, we believe that the GGL is on schedule. We have long been in favor of IP blocking and financial blocking as the last resort or the last tool against the black sheep, but not as a competitive tool. That is very important. These tools should only be used when the market is fully regulated and liberalized. Like in UK is a good example that the market is regulated and liberalized. This tool is very well that you go against this black sheep, the really black sheep, not the black sheep in this moment, because nobody has in this moment a license.
And does that create a degree of a level of certainty in a regulated market?
Sorry?
Does it create a degree of certainty in a regulated market?
I think the pain points of this primarily are in this moment the bet €1 and the 5-second spin at first, and this Lugas is a technical part because some of our clients forced against this Lugas because they think that is for data protection reasons. And additional, I think, is especially the new taxation. And we are currently a new pilot was sought on the part of the DVTM. It was the first association go against this tax regulation, and also the association of our members under the leading of the DVTM has a tax model procedure with its members. Also, we are say the new tax regulation is against the regulation against liberalization, because if you pay more tax than is normal, then it is a good reason for the black sheep market. And therefore, we say that is not the way, and we hope that we get in the next 3 to 6 months a signal from the EU, and then we get also signals from the part of the Germany.
Brilliant. Thank you, Renatus. And over to you, Jörg. Welcome to London. It's your first time in London, and also, obviously, therefore, ICE London. How are you finding it so far?
It was great.
Good. So, speaking of progress, how will advertising be controlled? Will there be an internal regulation on the subject of advertising regulation in Germany?
Yes, there will be such an administrative regulation. A recording of the broadcast radio and internet advertising programs shall be kept for the term of the license and submitted to the supervisory authority upon request. The obligation to record, store, document, and submit data is a measure within the scope of the duties of the gambling supervisory authority in its function as licensing authority, and is necessary for the comprehensive fulfillment of the supervisory duties. Advertising on third-party sites, affiliates, and social networks is also covered. Third-party sites in this context means internet sites of providers which are not assigned to the licensee. With regard to television advertising, the broadcasting times and places, and with regard to advertising on the internet, the third-party sites, affiliates, and social networks on which advertising is carried out, the advertising partners, the dispatch of newsletters, and the respective advertising times shall be continuously documented in an electronic table and kept for the duration of the license. Upon request of the supervisory authorities, the tables shall be provided to the supervisory authority. With respect to the control of advertising, the obligation for the Gaming Regulatory Authority and the Audiovisual Media Regulatory Authorities in Germany to cooperate and to support each other will be specifically important.
Brilliant, thank you, Jörg. And what safeguards will be taken to ensure advertising is responsible and permitted? Is there any sort of approval process in place?
No, there is no more an approval process in this field. Content-related and ancillary provisions regarding the design of advertising for public gaming, in particular on television and on the internet, as well as mandatory information, will be laid down in the permit for the public game. However, organizers and brokers of public games are obliged to ensure the protection of minors and of players, to encourage players to engage in responsible gaming and to prevent gaming addiction. For these purposes, the organizers and brokers of public gaming must develop and implement social concepts. The social concepts shall set forth the measures that will be taken to prevent and remedy the socially harmful effects of gaming. The social concepts must contain inter alia considerations with regard to the protection of minors and players in the field of advertising and sponsorship. Significant changes or additions to the advertising concept and significant deviations from the advertising concept shall be notified to the licensing authority without delay. A corresponding update of the advertising concept shall be submitted to the licensing authority every 2 years from the granting of the license.
And another question for you, Jörg. What rules apply to advertising and sponsorship with athletes, clubs, and testimonials currently, and plans for these regulations moving forward into the future?
Advertising for sports betting with active athletes and officials is not permitted. This means that sponsorship for sports betting with these persons is permitted. However, advertising is also deemed to exist if sponsoring references simultaneously contain advertising or advertising elements that directly or indirectly encourage or incite participation in gambling. This is particularly the case if the reference is made in a moving image or not only in a reasonable brevity. The advertising with athletes, clubs, and testimonials, as any other advertising, must be moderate and limited to what is necessary to achieve the objective of advertising, that means the objective of canalization.
Brilliant, thank you, Jörg. And Renatus, back to you. What action do you think is needed to improve German regulations?
I think the important things are, for example, the betting money from €1 more higher, and the spin from 5 seconds. It is one of the first priorities. The second is the Lugas technical part, that we find a solution, because somebody says, okay, this is not data conform. Other people says, okay, it's data conform, and you don't say it is data conform. You have not a chance to get a license. It is not okay. The second one is certainly the position of the tax regulation, because in this moment the tax regulation is too high. It is not interesting to spend money at the market because you lose money, and therefore this is the best way that the black sheeps make a good market, because they say, okay, we have a better spending and so on, and therefore this is not for a fair market. And at least I think that in the future it is very important that is a common understanding of this market and common understanding to go side by side, the regulation part and the operators and the other parts of this value chain. And therefore we have make the proposal that we get a round table and task forces, also table with task forces, that we got in a very short time solutions, practical solutions. And the GGL, as the chairman of GGL, Mr. Schwanke and Mr. Bender, say, okay, this is a wonderful idea. We would like to make more and more, so that we have solutions in a very short time, and common solutions, and that we gave a liberated and regulated market, like UK, for example, and other. And therefore, the pain points, I think we need around about 9 months. Then we find solution for the pain points, and the DVTM is this part in Germany of associations that make every time proposals that we have make these discussions at the 8th of March. It was the first time that 8 regulators with the part of with the members of our association had this discussion around about 3 hours, and every part say it was a very good idea, and it was the first step to come together and to work together for the future, and therefore I think this is the right way.
Thank you, Renatus. And Jörg, what's next for LMS Saarland? Are you working with the Gambling Authority to coordinate?
Yes, we will. We will support the new regulatory authority in all fields of its regulatory portfolio. We will strengthen the cooperation between the gambling authorities and the media regulatory authorities to prevent the occurrence of gaming and betting addiction, to create the preconditions for an effective addiction control, to counteract the development and spreading of prohibited games on the black markets, and to ensure the protection of minors and of players. From our point of view, it is necessary to learn from each other more than in the past. For example, the KGM, as the German Commission for Youth Protection in the Media, successfully conducted proceedings against a foreign pornography portal, at the end of which a blocking order was issued against several German access providers. This procedure can also provide important impulses for the IP blocking by the Gambling Authority. And we will foster a discussion on 2 regulatory items in the process of evaluation of the new state treaty. First of all, it could make sense to integrate co-regulatory and self-regulatory instruments in the gaming regulations. In the German as well as the EU rules on youth protection, such an approach has been successfully integrated in the regulation system. And secondly, it could make sense to follow the regulation of audiovisual media services also in another respect. On the field of gambling law, too, a minimum harmonization of the EU or the Council of Europe, respectively, might help to achieve the goals of a better protection of minors and of players, as well as the goal to strengthen market forces which are aware of their social responsibility.
And with the transition period underway, how is advertising being controlled? Will it be tolerated during the transition period for licensing?
The German authorities don't tolerate illegal behavior in the field of gambling, but regulators are willing and able to differentiate between serious and less serious violations in their supervision, and they are willing and able to differentiate according to whether a gaming operator is making an effort to establish its own legal behavior, or not. The establishment of a legal status which is in full accordance with the new German gambling law takes time. Time on the part of the gambling authorities as well as time on the side of the gambling operators. But this time cannot, need not, and will not be endless.
Brilliant, thank you. And Renatus, do you think this will help or hinder operators applying for a license and already taking bets in the market?
Sorry.
Do you think that there's a lack of toleration for the transition of period in licensing after Jörg's answer? Will that help or hinder operators applying for licenses?
Yes, we have made a proposal, it was in December 2021, that we have a transparent period by, for example, by advertising and other things. And some of the people like Mr. Ukro or Mrs. Kremer, the CEO of this Glücksspielkollegium in Germany, say, okay, it's a good idea because we need time. And in this time, the black sheeps have dominated this market. And if we make this transition time, we had a better market, and after this transition time, we have this license. But the political parties don't understand our proposals. They say only we have made the decision before 2 years ago that we make no transition period and so on. They are not thinking in a real time. They was thinking in the past time, not in the future. That was a problem. And therefore, perhaps it is a negative part of this regulation that we are not able to make things in the real time, and that we are flexible to say, okay, we have not the time we have planned, for example, that these advertising regulatory things are ready at the end of the 2021. And it's not the part of Mr. Ukro, for example, it was other things that is make it contrary. And therefore, I think the greatest problem in Germany is that we have made this entertainment contract in 2020. It was finished in 2021 in July, and the political parties don't have the view in which time or in which structure we will finalizing this. And therefore, this is a problem. It's a challenge for all the parties in this moment. For the 58 operators who would like to have a license, and also for the regulatory parts and the black sheep market, say every time, every day, it's a wonderful day because we have 1 day more to make not regulatory things, and say we earn money, and that is not fine.
Thank you, Jörg. Thank you, Jörg, and thank you, Renatus, for joining us in the ICE365 live studio. Please go and enjoy the show. We are fast approaching the opening ceremony, which is very exciting indeed. So do stick with us as we'll be going across to Andy, live from the show floor at the opening ceremony. We'll see you shortly. Welcome into ICE365 Live. Very shortly, we'll be patching across to Andy on the show floor for the opening ceremony. Until then, though, I am in the studio joined by Simon Thomas, the Executive Chairman of the Hippodrome Casino. Hello, Simon.
Hello, Katie.
Good to have you here. How are you?
Fantastic. It is so brilliant to be back at ICE and just to feel the vibrancy, see the people, and just realise life's getting back to normal.
Yeah, and it's obviously only just the beginning of day one, and the energy is already great, isn't it?
Yeah, well, actually, for me, this started on Friday because everyone comes to see the Hippodrome. So I was out with the head of UNLV, Bo Bernhard, on Saturday. We went to see Arsenal, which he loves, and then had dinner. And then Sunday, I had all the chief execs from the European Casino Association meeting, having a FaceTime together in the Hippodrome. Monday was at the ICE Vox, and again, loads of people back. So it's just a non-stop festival of seeing people and having fun.
Yeah. And was 2021 the first year that you haven't been at ICE London?
Yes, I'm so old. I remember the old ATE days. In fact, I think I sold ATE when I was chairman of BACTA, which was where ICE came from. So I've been coming for 30 odd years.
And why do you think these events are important to the industry?
I think they're more than important. They are essential to the industry. We've seen the last couple of years how miserable life is when you conduct meetings by Zoom. When you come and have live events, you get, obviously, you see people you're not expecting to see. You have conversations you're not expecting to have. You see products you didn't know about. And everything just spurs innovation and drives people forward. These sort of events are essential. And
do you think different types of deals or conversations take place because of being here all together?
No, absolutely. Every ICE I've ever been to, I've gone in with one set of ideas and thoughts and come out with something completely different. I've seen products that I didn't know existed. And it's often the conversations with people that when you get a really good conversation going and it flows, you create, the sum of the parts is much greater than the individual elements of it. It's brilliant.
So you were first announced as an ICE ambassador by Clarion Gaming. Woo! There's some exciting noise happening in the studio. I think it's the beginning of the opening ceremony, which we'll be going across to in a moment. So, the first announced ambassador for ICE by Clarion Gaming, congratulations. What have you been doing to spread the message of the show?
I'd say it's quite an honour to be the first ambassador. I didn't even realise that I was the first at the time. And it's quite an illustrious group of people. To be honest, it's so easy to be the ICE ambassador, because when you say to people, I'll see you at ICE, people want to be here. You don't have to sell the product. You don't have to come to London in April when the sun's shining and you've got the Easter weekend after it. People are gagging to come here. And so it's been an honour and a pleasure and a real joy.
And what are you most excited about at this year's show?
Oh, people. I love seeing all these people that I've not seen for a year, 2 years, and rekindling friendships, making new ones, having these discussions. You don't know where they're going to go, and you always learn. You're always sort of thinking, and it gets the brain working in a different way that it works when you're stuck in an office on your own. And so people.
And you mentioned noticing new products that you wouldn't otherwise notice.
Yeah.
Do you sometimes assess what to add for the Hippodrome at these events?
Yeah, I walk around, and even the products. This place is huge. Clearly this year we haven't got as many live casino products, but I've just been looking down the list of exhibitors, and there's loads to see. And it's when you're walking around and you see somebody and they go, have you seen? That's for me always the best thing, because people know who I am. And they see a product and they think, oh, that'd be really good in the Hippodrome. Yeah. So people are sort of telling me to go and see things. And it's sort of stuff I didn't know about, and love it.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Simon. Simon's going to stay with me here in the studio, but for now, we're going to patch across to Andy on the show floor, who is at the opening ceremony.
Thank you, Katie, and welcome down to the Centre Boulevard here at London's XL 2022, for ICE London 2022. You know, just under 2 years ago, this venue was making headlines across the UK and the world for a completely different story. But today, ICE London 2022 is back, and it's fantastic. We just saw a brilliant launch ceremony there with the band playing Purple Rain, of course, the Flash Mob Orchestra. And then, well, literally, when Stuart Hunter pressed the launch button, he really brought the roof down. We'll give you some more detail on that later. Look, I've got someone here. Just have a quick chat. Bonnie, come on in. Bonnie, welcome to ICE London 2022. Good to have you here. Have you been here before?
No, this is our first time for Shadow Esports from Berlin, yeah.
So what's the draw for you this year to come to what is a fantastic event?
Yeah, it's very fantastic. Just have a look. A lot of people, very exciting environment, and of course, a very good music.
So
Really.
first day here today, literally
Yes.
coming in here today, your
Yes.
first time. What's your initial impressions of ICE London 2022?
It's very, colorful and a lot of beautiful people, and I hope of a very exciting business here.
And obviously you're here for business, but it's all about learning and engaging, isn't it, at ICE?
Yeah, of course, about learning and engaging. Can't stop the learning, right?
Bonnie, thank you very much for your time. I'll let you carry on because I think the bands are going to start again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you too.
Okay, so we're down here. Look, there's loads of exciting things happening, not just today, but of course over the next 3 days right here at London's XL. Katie, I'm going to find out just exactly how much of the ceiling came down when they fired off the confetti cannons. Stuart, full whack there with the button. But back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Andy. Looking forward to hearing more about the opening ceremony. Ceremony. Let's get those words out, shall we? I'm going to join back with Simon to talk about the Hippodrome and the excitement of being back at ICE London. So yesterday, you were one of the headliners of the International Casino Conference. Were there any main lessons that you took away for the day? Share with us.
There's always lessons from those sort of conversations. I enjoy those panels when you get 5 people talking from different parts of the world, all different viewpoints, different angles on situations. You learn how international a business we are, how many of the issues, threats, and opportunities are shared across the globe. And so it's an honor and a privilege to be with that sort of group of people, and a great learning opportunity.
And was there anything shocking or anything surprising about what you learned yesterday?
Yeah, I was completely floored by a question, which I love chatting. But I was asked about the metaverse.
Ooh.
And it really made me realize how little I know about that subject. And it's something that I'm wanting to pick up on. So many of the technological advances are brilliant, exciting. Many of them you can't monetize from my point of view. Some you can, and I need to understand and explore that one so I can decide which way I go on it.
And the Hippodrome has become a magnet for ICE attendees over the years. What is happening at the venue for 2022?
Oh, lots and lots. It is extraordinary, actually, because it's almost like the canteen for for ICE. And we are mobbed every single evening. And it's great fun. You can hear I've got a croak on because I left at about 1 o'clock this morning. And it's, for me, I have the buzz of the ICE all day. And then everybody comes to the Hippodrome to see what we're doing in the evening. And the beauty of that property is it's huge. And I have a very, very low boredom threshold. So always changing things. And for a lot of people coming back, they haven't been for 2 years. And we didn't take COVID lightly. We took it as an opportunity to do a whole load of changes that would otherwise have been quite challenging. We actually built a 5th floor on the building. We've got a beautiful new roof terrace. We doubled the size of our outdoor area on the 4th floor, so more gaming tables. We completely renovated the poker rooms, so we've got a beautiful suite of new poker rooms. We created a new casino on the Gods, not unsurprisingly called the Gods Casino. It overlooks the whole of the theatre atrium. If you like heights, it's fantastic. If you don't like heights, you're not going to enjoy it. It's 60 feet up. It's the same height as the dwarfs used to dive from back in the Victorian era into the swimming pool. It's a mad place. And there were a couple of shops on the front of the Hippodrome which we finally managed to get hold of. And we're currently working on those. So next time people come, it'll be different again because we'll have redone the whole frontage. We're adding in a Chinese restaurant, a cafe bar which will be crepes, cocktails, coffee and champagne with cafe tables out on the street. And underneath it, we're going to have one of these sort of really cool hidden bars. I think the door's going to be one of the fridges in the kitchen. And being designed by a lady called Rachel O'Toole, who is just one of the coolest designers out there. She actually did the Magic Mike Theatre in the Hippodrome and the Boozy Tea Room, and we are so excited because they're just always moving, always changing, and it's lovely. And I love it when people from the international casino world come to little old England to see what we're doing, and we go to Vegas to see what they're doing. So it's quite nice to have a bit of a meeting of minds.
And are you expecting footfall from the show tonight to come to the Hippodrome? And what do you have planned? Tell us what you've got on the agenda.
We don't need to plan anything. That's a great thing. We've got 8 bars, and we've got one of the best steakhouses in London. So I know Sigma have got a big event in one of our event spaces. A couple of other companies have taken different spaces in the building for drinks parties, cocktails, whatever. But what we expect is a lot of people to come in, have an awful lot of fun, and just continue the conversations they started here, albeit maybe lubricated with a couple of glasses of whatever takes their fancy.
Wonderful. Thank you, Simon. So we are going to be joined by Stuart Hunter now, the Managing Director for Events Clarion Gaming. Hello, Stuart. Welcome in.
Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you too. Come and join us.
Hi, Simon. Good to see you.
So you've
just
flown across.
Literally. As if we need any more dramas.
You've just flown across from the opening ceremony.
Yeah, absolutely.
How was it? Tell us about it.
It was interesting. Do you know what? Just to kind of get ICE open, really, it's been a real milestone. So, yeah, excited to be here, to get the show on the road and see so many people. I think there's a real excitement and a buzz in the air, so great.
And was it your idea to have the orchestra flash mob?
Well, actually, we've got a really creative team. So obviously, every ICE show, we think, right, how can we reinvent? What can we do different? How can we kind of create some new level of experience for our guests? And yeah, sort of combined team effort. But always looking forward to do more interesting things. So yeah, it's good.
And how is the show looking? Have you managed to deliver what you were hoping to achieve?
Yeah, I think we have. Obviously, you know, it's well documented that it's been a really challenging period over the last 18 months, 2 years. Certainly more parts of the gaming industry have been more adversely affected, certainly the land-based industry, we know that, but it's coming back strong now. So I think where we are for this year's ICE, obviously it's smaller, but it's perfectly formed, I would say. I think we've got over 400 brands that are going to be here this week. Everyone is super excited to kind of show their wares, and I think, as you can see from the attendees, there's a real need to kind of get together and source new product and learn new things and experience stuff moving forward. So yeah, we're excited just to get the show open this year after 2 long years.
And it's been quite an undertaking for your team, hasn't it? How did you help them get through this?
I think it has been. It's been tough for everyone the last 2 years. Certainly in the organising world, anything live related, we were pretty much closed. Like the land-based industry, and I've talked to Simon quite regularly about the closures in the casino industry, and it's been really hard for everyone. We had the same thing in the live events world, so we had a long period of time to kind of reflect and think, okay, when we come back, how do we come back stronger? How do we come back with more resilience and just add more value to the experience for everyone? And from a team perspective, it's been really tough. But I think everyone's pulled together. We've had our ups and downs, but this is the moment where the satisfaction, I don't think there is any, certainly from my personal perspective, the satisfaction that you get on delivering a live event once it's open, that really is worth all those long hours, the kind of the struggles that we've had over the last year. So yeah, they're doing well. They deserve this week. They deserve this week.
And what are you most looking forward to at the show?
There's lots to see. For me, it's all about the people. I think when we saw registration, you see registrations coming through and you're tracking numbers, and it's a very linear exercise. And it all looks good and sounds good, and we track numbers and we track people from different parts of the sector, different geographies, individuals. So we're looking at that. But actually, when you're actually seeing physical bodies back together after 2 long years, you're seeing people that you've known for many years, and you're meeting new people as well. That's, for me, the most important thing this week. Being back together, and that's been our slogan, really, together never felt so good. It's been something that we've stood by now for 18 long months, and it's still poignant today as it was when we first came up with the campaign. So really just bringing everyone back together, and I'm sure there's going to be some exciting things happening this week.
And Simon, same question to you. What are you looking forward to seeing?
What do I?
At the show, what are you most excited about?
Oh, people.
People.
The products are here anyway, but it's the conversations. It is rekindling friendships, making new ones, exactly as Stuart says. And it has been an incredible journey, and all greatest respect to Stuart and his team, because there were plenty of detractors that tried, honestly, to almost pull the show down. And it just shows the strength of this brand, the strength of being in London, that it batted off the detractors. Obviously, we haven't got some of the big manufacturers here, but they do have different logistical problems, particularly this year, and I'm sure we can get past that next year. But I think it's incredible how London is one of the finest cities on the planet, how everybody wants to come here. This is one of the best shows in the gaming calendar. Everybody wants to be here. And I've seen loads of people already that I didn't expect to see who've made huge efforts to travel out here because they love it.
And just to give a bit of a backstory of the show, so the first show was called ATE, which stood for Amusements Trade Exhibition, which later became ATEI to recognise its growth in internationalism. It launched in Regent's Hall in London. Do you have any idea what year it launched?
1930s?
Go on, take a guess.
Yeah, it was the 30s for sure.
30s, yes, yeah, all right. It was 1936.
Oh,
and of course, so obviously the show was cancelled for COVID, but there was one other time that the show has cancelled since then. Do you know when else that was?
It's a quiz. That'd be the Second World War?
It was the Second World War, that's right. So the only other time that the show didn't go ahead was during the Second World War. Some more fun facts for you. So the break for the Second World War was the longest break in between editions. And the show must go on. In 1972, Ted Heath's government was embroiled in an industrial dispute with National Union of Mine Workers, resulting in a widespread power of cuts. When the lights went out at ATEI, exhibitors carried on by lighting candles supplied by the show organisers. So they had some candles on hand.
Just imagine the health and safety these days.
Exactly.
And I can't do that.
Yeah,
Are there ever any sort of plan B procedures in place? Just say all the power went out. Is there a plan B? Are there any candles on hand?
Yeah, there's a plan B, there's a plan C, but yeah, none of them involve candles. We're not allowed to do that anymore, definitely.
It's just some really
Any plans
funky
for repairing
torches.
roofs?
Well, there is now. There is now. That'll be well documented, I think.
We were sitting here and we really heard a loud bang.
Yeah.
Didn't quite know what was going on.
Yeah. That was the part of the show probably not expected by anyone. But anyhow, we got through it in the end.
And also, it's always taken place in London, apart from one occasion when it was forced to move to the NEC in Birmingham.
That's right.
Following the July 1980 fire, which nearly destroyed its home at Alexandra Palace. Do you think that the XL will remain its home for further years to come?
Look, we've always been very open about actually, being the custodians of the ICE brand and really ensuring that ICE is in a location that the buyers and the operators want it to be. So we always ask a lot of questions each and every year, but it has up until this point been resoundingly London is its home and its place for it to be. But I think London has huge amounts of strengths. You can see, as Simon pointed this year, in terms of everyone wanting to be here. So that's really our focus this year, is making sure that London has the opportunity to welcome the gaming industry and ICE, and you can see that everyone's made that extra effort, which is really exciting.
And the location, because of the Elizabeth line opening, is going to become even more accessible.
Absolutely right.
It's partially open this summer. Next summer, it'll be here to Tottenham Court Road in
15 minutes, just over, I think.
It should just make it even better.
Even easier to get to the Hippodrome from here,
Yeah.
definitely.
It still didn't cross my mind, but now you mention it.
Now I mentioned it. Yeah.
And the show usually takes place in January and February. Do you think the date move has sort of shifted things a bit or changed?
Yeah, obviously, our hand was very much forced in moving the show this year due to the variant of Omicron, which happened obviously in December time. So for us to move an event the size and scale of ICE is, I would say, largely impossible. Huge credit to XL, the management team, and our wider team to try and find a solution. This is the week we have. We understand it wasn't the best chosen week for everyone, but really we had no other choice. It was run this week in April or not run at all, and when we spoke to the industry, they really wanted and needed the show to happen. So we sat and positioned in this April, and we've made the best of it, and as you can see, I think everyone's really been committed to coming and joining the show, which is fantastic. Going forward, it will return to February. That's what the industry tells us is the key kind of date line. It's been its historical position since its inception. It's a key buying time, I think, for the industry, and almost sets the pace for the year ahead. So yeah, we're back next year in February on the 7th to the 9th. So only 9 months of planning left as soon as we finish on this one. So we've got a lot of work to
Your
do.
poor team.
I know.
Like,
they all want a holiday, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's a debrief next week and then focusing for 23. Well, we've already started, to be honest, but yeah.
Okay, get that in your calendar, folks. And is there anything that each of you would like to tell us about the show that you're excited about that's worth going to see?
I think the biggest thing to say about this show is it's amazing, and a huge welcome to everybody that's travelled out from different countries to come and see us here in London. And I think it's been quite a revelation for people coming from some of the countries where they've still got a lot of strong restrictions, how wonderfully open London is. And it's just put another gloss on it. They can walk around without masks or any sort of nonsense like that and live again. And I think the show is part of living again.
Yeah, and I think for me, in terms of, I echo everything Simon said. In terms of the feature experience, ICE365 Live being a brand new feature to the show, it's great to be here and see it come to fruition. I've seen it on plans, and it's been months in progress, but it's so good to see it live here. I think it was really important for us to try and add a media element to the show, to be able to broadcast content, interviews, and features within the show to those guests that couldn't travel this year. We knew that was going to affect certain people from certain geographies, so just really exciting to see this come together and see it packed full of great content this week. And yeah, it's a great looking feature, and hopefully everyone will enjoy it.
Brilliant. Thank you both so much for your time. Enjoy the show. I'm sure I'll be seeing you later on. For our viewers, thank you so much for joining us for part 1 of ICE365 Live broadcast. Join us this afternoon again at 2 o'clock for this afternoon segment. What an opening we've had. Some fantastic interviews and a very exciting opening ceremony indeed. We'll be seeing you again this afternoon at 2 o'clock.